Hello and welcome back to another, what can I call it, an episode? Well, another session of some cooks I'm doing for Mother's Day. And I'm doing some of the same things, so I'm just going to show you, I thought I'd show you something different. I'm just going to talk about a bit more about where I get the meats and that sort of thing as well. So I got this one from, you can actually get these at Drake's. Rick, who is an amazing butcher. He's actually got a place called the Home of Low and Slow down at Brompton, so check that out. But you can actually buy meats directly from Rick as well, and he also distributes them through the Drake's supermarkets. Most of these low and slow meats also come cryovac, which means that the shelf life is a lot longer as opposed to getting meat directly from a butcher where they will just sort of put it in some freezer bags. So for example, I'm looking at this one here. This is a 4 kilo brisket, and it's actually, the best before date is the 27th of May. So, and that's in the fridge, so they keep a long time. So I got this one Thursday night. It's Saturday today, so it's only been in the fridge a couple of days. But yeah, the good thing about these cryovac meats is yeah, you can buy them a few days out without any problems. So, as well as the brisket, I've got a smaller brisket here which I'm taking to my parents for Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day as well to all the mothers watching this. And this is basically, I reckon this is actually a point end of the brisket as well. So I'm taking that to Mum and Dad's tomorrow night, Sunday night, yeah. So, and I've also got a bone in, probably one of the biggest, I reckon it's probably one of the biggest pork cuts I've actually cooked. So, and this is what they call a Boston butt, which is basically the shoulder part of the pork, and it's a bone in. So there is a slight bit of bone in here, not a lot, very minimal bone. Most of this is all meat, and you'll see when I do the pork, when we pull this out, the bone will just come straight out without any issue at all. So they're the meats that I'm cooking today. And I thought I'd actually show you how I'm going to actually trim this brisket from start to finish. Last time I sort of started it, and then Michelle filmed me and I did a bit more, then I said I'd come back after I've done it, but I'm going to do the whole thing right now. So I'm going to do all 3 meats, so hopefully my wife's arm is not going to get too sore filming this. The gloves as well, I thought I'd mention this. Samba is one of the, well, it's one brand of gloves. And you can get these from Bunnings, relatively inexpensive as well. You get 50 in a pack, which will last you a while. So if you're wondering where you get these sorts of gloves that I'm wearing, you can get them from Bunnings. There's plentiful of them, they're always available. You don't have to look too hard to find them. So I thought I'd share that with you as well. And before I start the rubs I'm going to use today, because I thought it'd be easy to show you the rubs before my hands get all messed up with sauces and everything else. I'm using Holy Cow Meat Church rub, the same as I used last time for the brisket. The Hardcore Carnivore again, which I think is actually the same as I used last time as well. So I'm going to stick with the same rubs. I was going to use different ones. Next time I do it, I will use different ones to mix it up a bit. And the pork, I'm sticking with the Meat Church brand, and I'm going to do, it's called the Gospel Rub, which has actually got little piggies on the front of it. So this is a pork rub as well. With your rubs, I did mention this before, always be aware of how peppery they are or not, if you like it really hot or not, and who you're cooking for. And you can always just basically, you know, with a new rub, you can just unscrew the lid. And if you take a bit of a smell, that'll give you a pretty good indication if it's going to be really hot or not. But these smell quite mild. I know this will be fine because I've used this one plenty of times as well, so it's from the same place. So now we're going to get started with the brisket. So first thing is, and I've gone right from the start because I haven't even opened this yet. So we're going to get this brisket out of the cryopacks. Like that. Now I need to get a towel, and I'll get some towels to actually cut it dry. So just bear with me a minute. And this is what happens when you feel live. There's always one thing you forget. I'm always awesome. She's now getting me the towels, thank you. So that's fine. Put that little bit there. Okay, so we're just going to pat this dry first a little bit. And I'll show you what to look for. I did say this briefly last time I did a video about the brisket, but I'm going to show you what I actually look for when I'm trimming one of these, or what I actually do. So just kind of pat it dry a little bit. Don't need that. Of course, this is my fat bowl here to do all the trimmings I've got. Now this, particularly on this side of the brisket, this is actually quite good because there's not a lot of fat there. So I don't have to do a lot of trimming, particularly on this side. I'm going to do a little bit, get some of this, what they call the silver side stuff off, this silvery grey type meat. I'm going to get some of that off. All right, there's some half fat there, and this is what I'm saying. I just run my fingers around and you can instantly feel for the real hard fat. So a lot of that I'm going to start cutting there. Soft fat here, I'm just going to keep that, I think. I might trim it a little bit in a minute. And also trim some of this hard fat here off as well. And you really can just feel it with your fingertips. So let's start with this bit here. What I'll try and do, I'll try and hold it on an angle so you can actually see me. Again, this is literally just out of the fridge, so the brisket's nice and cold. It actually looks like I'm cutting really deep into the meat, but I'm not. You can see there's still fat there to trim out. Trim this off in small steps as well when you do this, and hold the brisket in the easiest way so you can actually guide it. Yeah, and don't try and take well, where possible, don't try and take a massive lump of fat out in one hit as well. Just take your time with this, all right? It's all right to go in a bit smaller, because if it's smaller, you can keep going to the meat. That's Ziva, the dog, interjecting.
She's gone on Paw Patrol.
Now she's gone on patrol and she's outside.
Yeah, Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol. There's probably no one there. Someone probably sneezed again. So we're just going to keep going with this, because this is, while there's not a lot of fat on this brisket, hard fat, it's all in this one area though. And this is what I was saying before, no briskets are the same in terms of how much fat you need to trim off. You know, I think the better quality brisket, I mean, this is probably no hard and fast rule, but for me, you know, the better quality the brisket, the probably less fat, you're going to have to play around with the trim. So now we're really starting to get rid of a lot of this. And you know, it's okay to leave some of this stuff on. It really is. You just want to try and even this out a bit. This brisket's actually quite even. I'm actually quite happy with the curve on this brisket anyway. I mean, this is all what I was saying decal. So before you've got the flat and you've got the point. So the point bit traditionally is where I find more fat is. So this is kind of the area you work on a lot more than the point end. And you don't want to dig in like when you're trimming this, you don't want to make a, well, Myron Nixon, one of the American barbecue legends, he calls it a hot mess. You don't want to make a hot mess when you're doing this. So go in slowly. Go in slowly. And just feel for the fat. Now there's a lot of fat, and it always is, more fat up this end. The reason is because there's actually connective tissue which effectively connects these two muscles together. So that's why you tend to spend a lot more time on the point end when you're trimming this. Knife's very sharp, so keep your fingers wide away from the knife when you do this. You don't want to cut yourself. That just wakes Eva up. She was thinking of having a sleep then until Dad did that. Alright. Go in slow. Alright. Take your time. No need to rush. Yeah, look, it looks like a lot of this has been trimmed down anyway. So, I can still feel a lot of hard fat here, you know. So I'm going to work on this just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And you know when you've got, in fact I'm going to show you something in a minute. You know when you're getting obviously a lot of this fat out, because now you're starting to hit the meat. So that tells you, obviously, that you're getting rid of a lot of this excess fat. Right, this hard stuff. I've never trimmed every bit of hard fat off any brisket I've ever done. And you really don't need to. You know, kind of lifting the brisket up. So, you know, in that relatively short time, you can see how much fat I've actually now taken out of this. You know, and again, this is actually pretty good. I'm actually really happy with this brisket. Really, really happy with it. Okay, so that fat there is actually connecting all this. So unless you want to split this in two, you don't want to go too crazy. You know what? I'm just going to take the smallest amount up here, and that's going to be enough for this end, I think. Yeah, because now I'm starting to expose meat. Alright. So you can see what I've trimmed there, actually, if you follow the fat through, it comes through to here. So now we're just going to start looking at some of this top stuff as well. So again, I'm just feeling around, and I'm just going to take off some of the surface fat as well. Again, you just got to turn this thing around until you get to, you know, the right angle that you want. It's going to work for you the best. Be safe. You're dealing with a sharp knife here. Okay, my hand's right underneath the meat here, nowhere near where I'm cutting. Right. And I'm starting to expose the meat here as well. So we're getting really close. Right. And it's okay to actually, if it is, you know, there's always going to be like a little bit of meat off when you do this. That's fine. You're never going to 100% get off just fat and nothing else. So, you know, that's all I'm going to do there. This end, I'm actually quite happy. I am now happy with that. So I'm going to start just trimming some of this stuff down a little bit. Again, you know, I'm just really looking for the hard fat. I'm not really too worried about the soft fat. You know, in fact, I encourage you. You know, I think I did mention this before, to leave a lot of the soft fat on. You know, because that's only going to add to flavour of the brisket when you do this. You know, there's some real you know, I've seen some briskets and they have almost like a grey fat, like a grey meat colour. If you've come across any of stuff that looks like that, and there's no examples here, I can really show you. You know, that's the sort of stuff you wanna cut off as well. Okay, we are getting close, I think, to actually getting this where I want it to be. Yeah, I can still, again, the meat's getting thin here, so go small. Just take a little bit off the top, especially when you get this thin, especially on the flat point. So you notice on the flat point, I'm not taking anywhere near as much off as I had to on the point end of the brisket. You got this fat on the side here. So what you can do, I'm actually just going to trim that off. And again, I know I'm going to get a bit of meat when I do this. But I'm also shaping it a bit more as well. And this is the most taxing part of it. You know, I mean, if there is a part of my cooking which I probably find a bit tedious, it's doing this. But it has to be done, because otherwise you're going to have far too much of this hard fat on the brisket. It just makes it like gristly and chewy. It's like if you go and buy a cheap chop or something like that and you try and bite through it. You know, we're getting that curd now. So the meat's actually quite flat. Bit of fat here. You know, let's get that off. Yeah. And again, I'm probably repeating myself from last time a little bit. But, you know, I did mention before, you can do this all day. But at some point you're going to stop, or you want to stop. Some of this stuff you can just lift off like that, and it's just this bit of the silver side I was saying, the grey fat stuff. Yeah, but that's, you know, I'm not feeling as much hard fat now at all. You just, and this is the other thing, you can run your fingers over and you can feel, you know, most of this is pretty smooth now. So you know that fat's going to render in. Probably could get away with another small layer again. I'm getting close to the meat, so I'm going to stop. You know. So I am going to just leave that brisket trimmed the way it is here. You know. And this is what I'm notoriously do. I've just said that, and here you go, there's a bit sticking up as well. Rub your hands over, you know, just feel, you know if, so you know, I'm just feeling that knife. So that bit of meat there is very thin, so stop. You need to stop when it gets too thin. This is the last bit, I promise. There we go. So you run your hand over. I can feel, well, yeah, there is some hard fat on there, most of it. I've taken off the brisket now as well. when you slice the brisket, and this is something I didn't mention before and I didn't do. When you slice the brisket, when it's done, you want to go kind of against the grain. So what I do is, I'm just going to score in this bit of meat here. So this tells me when I actually barbecue this, when I take it off, I know where to cut this meat from. Some people actually would take the whole chunk off, which you can do. I mean, it's probably a slight waste of meat, but why, you know, I can't see any sense in taking it off. As long as you've got that gap there. I know when I start slicing this now that I'm going to be able to, you know, cut it from that point. I know it's going to be fine. So just wipe your hands. Like that. And now it's saucing time, which Michelle's going to do for me. No, I'm just kidding. She's shaking her head. She's going, I'm not going to do this. Alright. Worcestershire sauce. If you haven't seen my videos before, binding, this is what we call binding the meat, putting a binder on there. Adds probably a little bit of flavour, but you know, I'm not really doing it for flavour. I'm doing it so this rub's going to stick to the meat, particularly because I'm going to put this in the fridge once it's done. It's got a baking dish here because I haven't got an aluminium foil tray. Well, I have got some, but I think it's going to be too big for one of these smaller trays. That's alright. This will sit in the fridge alright on this one here. So that'll be fine. Rub it around. I think last time I actually rubbed it and I seasoned it, and then I flipped it over and rubbed it and seasoned it. It really doesn't matter. Probably do a little bit more there, just to make sure that this rub's gonna stick to the meat, like that. Wipe your hands. I do like these gloves because you can actually wipe the gloves, and it actually dries the gloves really well. And these are disposable. But okay, time to put the rub on again. So trying to put on some holy cow. Let me put the lid on the Worcestershire sauce bottle. I almost then had the wrong side. So I open up when you got little holes. What I actually did was I opened up where the whole area was exposed. I almost dumped a heap of it on there. I almost looked silly. So again, kind of hold it up about this on the shoulder height. Let it fall down. I'm just going to pat that in. My dog is a very good girl. She's just watching so inquisitively. Probably wishing it was going to be in a bowl. And she's a beagle, so trust me, she'd eat all of this. She'd be extremely unwell afterwards. But I'm sure if I gave the word, she would just love to gulp this down, wouldn't you? But you're not. No. So, I mentioned, when you're getting in this decal part, this is the bit that I cut out when you first saw me do it. Try not to cake it up too much in here, because when it cooks, you want it just to cook really evenly as well when you do it. Hardcore black, same one I used before. I like this one. I think what I do like about it gives it a good colour. It certainly adds to the flavour. It's pretty much like a coconut charcoal based rub. So it almost looks like I've cooked it without even putting it on the barbecue, right? Competitions, they probably put a bit more on than I'm doing. Or some don't, but as long as you've covered the meat pretty much, that's all you need to do. And if you've got a bit of red meat exposed, wouldn't be too concerned about it. Flip it over. plenty of Worcestershire sauce still on this side, so I'm not even going to put any more on. Didn't think I needed to. Pretty much repeating the same process. Alright. Kind of going across here. It's like when you're at school and you're colouring in a book. It's pretty much what you're doing. Colouring in the meat with rub. Lift the flap up a bit, you know, and get some seasoning in here as well. I think Rick, when he cut this up, I reckon he actually took a lot of this fat out anyway, which made my life a lot easier. Because I remember the last time I showed you a brisket, I had a lot of fat that was built up in this area, and I actually cut it out after I filmed it. Squeeze that in there. Patting it down, not rubbing it. Pat it down makes it more even. It's called rub, but you pat it. Or at least I do. Well, on bigger briskets, a lot of restaurants, and I asked this question of Low and Slow actually when I was there, not Rick's place, there's the other Low and Slow place at Port Adelaide I mentioned. I actually asked them, you know, what rubs they use. They stick with salt and pepper because obviously, you know, these rubs are pretty costly at times, and the amount of briskets they do, they probably have to sell the briskets for a lot more than they do to keep affording to buy these rubs, because these rubs are, well, that one's what, $23, that one's about the same, this one's probably about 20. I did a video earlier talking about rubs, and you know what, these are, as good as these rubs are, and these are good rubs, but you're paying for it. You can go to, like, you know, your local supermarkets, and like Master Foods have some really good brisket rubs as well. So that's done. I'm just going to sit that there for now. I'm going to point my finger at the dog because I know she's got an interest in it. Okay, I'm not going to do this one on camera, the other small brisket, because I don't want my wife's arm to completely drop off, so she's nodding her head saying thank you. I'm just going to do the pork though, as well. And if you have seen my other videos, the pork is so much easier than doing the briskets, because this pork fat, and we'll take a quick look at this. Pork fat's a lot softer, right? So I won't need to go to town with the trimming. And just looking at it here, I probably could just about get away without taking any fat off this one. It all looks pretty good. If you're interested in sort of what the prices are for this stuff, that brisket was just over about $65, $66.